Hi everybody, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, and welcome to my coverage of SpaceX's Falcon 9, the first Block 5 they'll be flying. This is really exciting. I've done videos all about why Block 5 is exciting, what Block 5 is. If you don't know, Block 5 is basically their ultimate version of the Falcon 9. This is their workhorse rocket. All the lessons learned from all those landed Falcon 9 rockets, all of the trials and errors, all the landings, the refurbishment, the recovering and reflying of the Falcon 9, all of it leads up to this now ultimate version that will soon fly astronauts. I'm so excited. This is an awesome launch. This is an exciting launch. This is today carrying the Bangabandhu sat for Bangladesh. So congratulations, Bangladesh. This is a really exciting mission for you to be a part of. And welcome. I believe this is their first satellite. So welcome to space. This is really exciting. I can't wait for this to get off the ground. This is a 3,700 kilogram geostationary satellite. So the Falcon 9 will be delivering it to a geostationary transfer orbit, which is a pretty high energy orbit. So in order to do that, that means a lot of the energy of the first stage needs to be going horizontal. It means there's not enough reserves for this Falcon 9 to turn around and land back on land. It will have to land out at sea on the autonomous spaceport drone ship, named, of course, I Still Love You. So this is a big one. This is a really exciting one. The Block 5 has a lot of new stuff. We can briefly talk about it while we wait for the SpaceX live stream to fire up here. But this is awesome. This will be taking off from Kennedy Space Center at Launch Pad 39A, which is the historic launch pad where, of course, everyone that walked on the moon took off from that launch pad, which is very exciting. A lot of the space shuttle missions took off from there, too. This is a really historic pad. This is a great mission. This is where Falcon Heavy took off from. It's one of 2 East Coast launch pads for SpaceX. They also have about a few kilometers away, they have Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40, which is technically on the Air Force side. It's not actually Kennedy Space Center. It's the Air Force, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So that being said, welcome everybody, and I hope you're as excited as I am. Again, this is a big one. This is a really exciting mission. Block 5 is meant to be able to be landed, carted away, basically put back on the launch pad, refueled, and flying within 24 hours. Literally airline-like reuse is the goal. This first one, Elon said, I was actually just on the press conference phone call about an hour ago. I already did a live stream talking specifically for a half hour almost about what Elon Musk covered during that press conference. We can't air that, unfortunately. Otherwise I would have, but instead I just recapped it for you guys. So if you have questions about what's new with Block 5, check out that video after this, and or check out, we got the SpaceX stream coming up live. Otherwise, check out, I did do a video about the block changes, why they're called, block this, block that, hooty, and whatnot. So let me make sure the audio is working for me. I'm going to let the music kind of hang out in the background. We've had previous problems with audio, but I think I got it fixed this time. So so we'll talk about it here more in a second. But first, thank you to Spiral Beard Production for your generous tip. Thank you very much. And Distanced, so excited. What would I do if the launch failed? You'll probably watch a grown man cry. This is a big one. This is, they're expecting to freeze this version of the Falcon 9. SpaceX is notorious for literally never building 2 of their Falcon 9 rockets the same. Every single one has these little design iteration changes, and that's very unusual for the aerospace industry. So that being said, they've had to put extra, all their eggs in this basket for the Falcon 9 now to be this frozen version so they can certify it for NASA to put astronauts on board for the upcoming CRS mission. Commercial Crew Program, CCP. Upcoming CCP program, the Commercial Crew Program, where SpaceX will be launching astronauts to the International Space Station using the Dragon 2 capsule on top of a Falcon 9 booster. Obviously, it'll be Block 5. But then Boeing is also doing the same thing using their Starliner capsule, riding on top of ULA's Atlas V rocket. And hopefully, it's sounding like maybe end of 2019 / probably 2020 now. Every time we get within a year, or it's supposed to be the year of, it gets pushed back. It's really been frustrating. I'm ready for Americans to launch into space from U.S. soil. But at the same time, I'd rather it be safe and done right. So I know NASA has really the strictest guidelines ever, more strict than their space shuttle. They learned a lot of lessons on the space shuttle. Unfortunately, 14 lives perished. They're really making sure that this new way that's cheaper isn't at the cost of safety. So safety is first and foremost. SpaceX now says this will be by far the most reliable rocket in the world. They're hoping that all of the lessons they've learned throughout the past 16 years since the company was first founded is all riding on the shoulders of this Block 5 Falcon 9. This is awesome. So I want to say real quick a big thank you and hello to my Discord channel. If you'd like to join our exclusive Discord channel, hey guys, and yes, hello to you guys. Then you can help support on Patreon, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. That means a lot to me. That's how I'm able to keep doing this stuff full time. That's how I'm able to stay on top of SpaceX news, how I'm on top of trying to stay on top of all the aerospace industries, teach you guys lessons like in my upcoming video I'll be doing why single stage to orbit vehicles suck. You'll see. I think I'll convince you. So it'll be awesome. I'm working really hard. I'm putting in beyond full-time hours on this. So a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. So if you want to join, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. That stuff helps so much. Allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. So thank you guys. And hello, Discord channel. Howdy. All right. So let's see. Hello, first off. Wow. So James, hey man, not much to say, loving your live coverage. Well, thank you so much, James, and thanks for joining. Thank you for the tip. I love this stuff too. Timu, do I have a new computer already? I sure do have a new computer. Thanks again to the generous support of my patrons and to you people for helping with tips as well. All that stuff matters. Thank you very much. I do now have a 10-core, 3 gigahertz computer with 4.5 gigahertz turbo boost, 64 gigs of RAM, a 2 terabyte internal hard drive with 3000 megabit per second read-write, 64 gigs of Vega 64 graphics, and of course still all attached to my 18 terabytes in a RAID 6 on Thunderbolt 2. Woo! 2 5K monitors. I'm set up. I am ready to go. Kerbal looks like a dream these days. I'm utilizing Realism Overhaul with finally actual 30 frames per second on the highest graphics settings for this upcoming Why Single Stage to Orbit Vehicles Sucks. So I couldn't be happier to have a new computer. So thank you guys. Thank you. SpaceX launches aren't the same. Thank you, Christopher. I'm just excited. Block 5 has me really excited if you can't tell. Osley, happy Block 5. Thank you. 6, great content. Thank you very much. Hopefully Block 5 is going to be a success. The email on my website is still active. Thank you. Mui233, you're welcome for the great content. Thank you for the compliments. Michael, what is my opinion on fueling with and without astronauts in the capsule? That's a great question, Michael. I did touch on that in that I kind of did an overview of the press conference leading up, the teleconference leading up to this Block 5 launch with Elon. And someone asked, basically, is that still a concern? Because it sounded like NASA was, a little bit concerned about the idea of having people on the rocket while it's fueled. And he kind of kicked back and said, I don't think it's much of a problem anymore. I think we're over that. And he said, it's akin to if you were on a jetliner, they don't make you sit there and wait outside, in the airport for them to fuel it. You're on the airliner while it's being fueled. And also, he didn't quite say this, but in my opinion, where would you rather be in the event of some kind of, overpressurization or some kind of catastrophic failure during fueling? Would you rather have the crew and the ground support crew and all the people helping get the astronauts, safely seated, on the tower around the pad while it's fully fueled? Or would you rather your 3 to 7 astronauts, or 2 at first, be tucked away inside a pressure vessel with a heat shield and abort motors so that while they're fueling, if something were to go off, I wouldn't want to be anyplace else. As a matter of fact, there's literally like a zip line at the top of both. So Slick 41, where Atlas will be taking off from, as well as, sorry about the mic hit, as well as when the space shuttle took off, there's literally like a zip line for an escape. A zip line? If a rocket's going to blow up behind me, you think I'm going to zip line down to safety? No, thank you. That's a quick enough egress maybe for someone's going to toss a tomato in my general direction. Let me zip line down to safety. We're talking about a rocket fuel with enough TNT explosive power to, level a whole mile almost or whatever. This is a zip line? To me, it's way better to have them inside the Dragon capsule, ready to go. So, the launch live stream is now up. Real quick, thanks Alex, and thanks Herman, and thanks James, and thanks Chris Harris. Block 5, block 5, block 5. Thanks guys, let's do this. I'll bring the levels up here. This is it, baby, this is it.
It is May 10th at 2:29 p.m. Pacific time, and you are looking at a live view of the upgraded Falcon 9 rocket as it awaits liftoff from the SpaceX launch pad in approximately 17 minutes. Welcome to today's live webcast for the Bangabandhu-1 mission from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. My name is Tom Perderio, and I'm a firmware engineer in the avionics department here at SpaceX. Today's launch is a particularly exciting one as we have two important milestones taking place. The first milestone is that the payload, Bangabandhu-1, will be the first official geostationary communications satellite for the nation of Bangladesh. The second milestone today is that this is the debut of a series of upgrades to Falcon 9 that we're calling Block 5. These upgrades are designed to allow us to reuse each Falcon 9 10 times or more and also reduce refurbishment time between flights. Falcon 9 today will deliver Bangabandhu-1 to geostationary transfer orbit, also known as GTO. After that, we will be attempting to recover this first stage on Of Course I Still Love You, which is our drone ship currently stationed about 340 nautical miles downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. If successful, this will mark the 25th successful landing for SpaceX. As you can see, we've got a lot to cover in today's webcast, so let's get started.
Hi, I'm Lauren Lyons, and I'm an engineer here in our Flight Reliability Department. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, just a little bit about Falcon 9. It's a two-stage rocket, each stage having its own engines and its own propellant. The first stage, which is this lower portion here, this is the part of the rocket that generates the tremendous thrust that's necessary in order to get the rocket through the most dense parts of Earth's lower atmosphere and accelerate the second stage and payload up to approximately 48,000 kilometers per hour. This is also the part of the rocket that we're going to be attempting to land on our drone ship after it separates from the second stage, which is sitting on top here. Stage 2 has a single Merlin engine that is optimized to operate in the vacuum of space, and it's going to be responsible for delivering Bangabandhu-1 into its targeted geostationary transfer orbit. Now, at the very, very top of that rocket, that nose cone that you see there is called our payload fairing, and inside of it, Bangabandhu-1. The fairing is what protects the satellite from aerothermal heating and contamination as we travel through the Earth's atmosphere. But once we get into the vacuum of space, we jettison it, it'll separate from the rocket and fall back down to Earth. Now, if you've been watching our rockets for a while, you notice that Falcon 9 looks visibly different today. Most notably, we have this black inner stage, this black raceway cover, and these black landing legs. This is the color of our improved thermal protection system materials, or TPS as we call it, and it doesn't require painting. The new thermal protection material is a highly flame-resistant felt, which we expect to be more rapidly reusable than the cork that we previously used. Now, all these changes reflect our ongoing efforts to build not just reusable rockets, but rockets that are rapidly reusable. Eventually, we hope that rocket launches will become like commercial airplanes, where the rockets can be flown over and over again with minimal refurbishments in between. We'll talk more about the Block 5 upgrades later in the webcast, but with just a few minutes left before liftoff, let's get a status update.
Hi, I'm Michael Hammersley, a materials engineer in our avionics department, and I'll be bringing you status updates on the vehicle. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the Bangabandhu-1 payload last night at about 8 p.m. local time, and it went vertical at roughly 8 a.m. local time this morning. We went through the launch director's go, no-go poll, held at about T-minus 2 hours, and we're currently working no issues on the vehicle. One of the several changes to Block 5 is in how we load propellants. We use a liquid kerosene fuel called RP1, and our oxidizer is liquid oxygen. Now, instead of starting with our fuel load at T-minus 70 minutes, we began loading both RP1 and liquid oxygen onto the first stage at T-minus 35 minutes. At the same time, we started loading RP1 onto the second stage. So the first stage is going to be continuing its fill just until a couple minutes before launch. It's at about 80% full of RP1 and 85% full of RP1 and about 80% of liquid oxygen. The second stage does its propellant loading sequentially. So its RP1 load is actually complete. That was finishing up at about T-minus 22 minutes. And the liquid oxygen load began just a few moments ago, and it's at about 15% loaded at the moment. We pressurize the tanks with helium. Those are at just under 100%. We'll slowly be trickling in additional helium. Those hold the pressure in the tanks when we're emptying the tanks of fuel during ascent. We're also planning on recovering the first stage of today's Falcon 9. The drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, is currently holding position 340 nautical miles southeast of Kennedy Space Center. And after stage separation around T plus 3.5 minutes or so, or 2.5 minutes or so, excuse me, we should be bringing you live coverage on its way back down. All told, vehicle's healthy at the moment. Payload's also healthy, and the range is a go. Weather-wise, we're watching some strong high-altitude winds and some thick cloud layers that are cooling to minus 20 degrees Celsius, but there's nothing that's looking like it's going to stop us from launching in 12 minutes from now.
Block 5 refers to a series of upgrades we've made to the Falcon 9 rocket as part of our ongoing effort to make spaceflight more like commercial air travel is today, and that is to say safe, affordable, and utilizing vehicles that can be flown over and over again. Over time, the primary benefit of these Block 5 upgrades will be the capability to achieve rapid reusability with high reliability. Block 5 is designed for 10 or more flights with very limited refurbishment, but should be capable of additional flights with further testing and possibly additional refurbishment after that. In addition to the changes that Michael and Lauren have touched on, we've also made changes to the 9 Merlin engines on the bottom of the first stage of the Falcon 9. The thrust of each of these Merlin 1D engines has been increased from about 176,000 pound-feet to 190,000 pound-feet at sea level, which represents roughly an 8% increase in thrust. We also have changed the primary thrust structure that houses these engines, which we call the octaweb, from a welded aluminum structure to a bolted structure. And this greatly reduces the manufacturing and inspection burden and increases reliability and shortens the lead time while in manufacturing. Additional improvements have been made to the landing legs to support rapid post-landing vehicle processing, and we've upgraded the operational capability of components across the board on the rocket. Some of the improvements we made have already flown on previous vehicles. For example, the titanium grid fins, which have significantly greater control authority than the previous iteration, were flown for the first time back on Iridium 2 in June. In addition, we've also flown an upgraded first stage heat shield, thermal protection tiles, as well as a new second stage new anti-vortex device, which is used to prevent the fluids inside the stage from developing into a whirlpool or vortex. The ultimate goal is to be capable of relaunching a flown booster within 24 hours with minimal refurbishment. That doesn't mean we intend to fly the rocket once a day, but we could if we needed to. Block 5 will be SpaceX's workhorse vehicle for years to come. It is the final substantial upgrade to the Falcon 9 design, although we may make minor upgrades as we continue to strive for rapid reusability and extremely high reliability.
As previously mentioned, Bangabandhu Satellite 1 will be the first Bangladeshi geostationary communication satellite for the country of Bangladesh. The satellite was built by Thales Alenia Space of France and fitted with 26 Ku band and 14 C-band transponders. This allows the satellite to cover a wide variety of broadcast and telecommunication applications, including satellite TV, internet access, and emergency communication services, and much, much more. The satellite will be operated by the Bangladesh Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, or the BTRC. Located at 119.1 degrees east, Bangabandhu Satellite 1 will provide direct-to-home services, video distribution, and very small aperture terminal communications across Bangladesh. The satellite will also provide broadband connectivity to rural areas throughout the country. The satellite's mission is expected to last at least 15 years. The launch of Bangabandhu Satellite 1 is a key milestone for the country of Bangladesh, and to acknowledge this effort, we have a special message from the CEO of Thales Alenia Space, and its messages to the teams who made this mission possible.
Today is an important day for Bangladesh and for all of us. Bangabandhu Satellite 1 is, without any doubt, a pioneering and ambitious space program that will mark the history of Bangladesh. And I'm very proud of Thales Alenia Space to be part of this exciting story. Bangabandhu Satellite 1 is designed to reduce the digital divide in Bangladesh by providing broadcasting and communication services all over the country, and particularly in rural zones. This satellite will highly contribute to the economic development of Bangladesh. Being the country's first telecom satellite, it also represents the confirmation of Bangladesh entry into the high-tech space sphere. And at Thales Alenia Space, we are delighted to contribute and make this happen. The teams from Bangladesh worked with us in a very professional and human way. We will never forget the emotional and decisive moment of the satellite's acceptance review in our clean rooms. The entire delegation, with the Bangladeshi flag in their hands, began to sing in unison in front of the huge silvery mass of the Bangabandhu Satellite 1. It's moments like these that really lend meaning to our motto, Space for Life. I would like to congratulate all teams involved for doing such a fantastic job. Thales Alenia Space teams for their large contribution and for having delivered the satellite on time, Spectra, our efficient satellite ground segment partner in Bangladesh, and SPI team for the close cooperation with our teams along the program. Finally, I would like to warmly thank BTRC for entrusting us with the first satellite. From beginning to end, you can count on Thales Alenia Space. Joy Bangabandhu, joy Bangladesh.
It's awesome.
We're now at about T-minus 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and at this point, Stage 1 and Stage 2 are just about fully loaded with almost 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The second stage is 100% full of RP1 and about 85% full of liquid oxygen. The first stage is just under 100% of RP1 and at about 98% of liquid oxygen. We'll continue topping both stages off until about T-minus 2 minutes to keep the propellants as cold and therefore as dense as possible. That way we can fit as much propellant onto the vehicle to loft the satellite this afternoon. Around the T-minus 7 minute mark, we began our engine chill procedure. The propellants are much colder than the engines, and so it's important to get the engines to the correct temperature by slowly flowing propellant through them before ignition. Liquid oxygen in particular is so much colder that it would turn into a gas upon first contact, which would be a pretty hard start for the engine. The next major activities, the strong back, that's the white structure right next to Falcon 9 there, will open and slightly retract away from the rocket. It will fully recline as soon as Falcon 9 leaves the pad. At T-minus 3 minutes, we'll be performing an engine wiggle. That's double checking to make sure that the thrust vector control system is working properly. That's the system that allows the engines to steer Falcon 9 during ascent. At T-minus 60 seconds, you'll hear that Falcon 9 is in startup mode, which means that the rocket's internal flight computers have taken over the countdown. One more interesting change for this mission in particular relates to how we're using the Merlin engines. In Block 4, the engines were used with a constant chamber pressure. Because engine thrust depends on both chamber pressure and external atmospheric pressure, the engine thrust would slowly increase by up to 10 or 15,000 pounds per engine during ascent. The difference here is that for Block 5, we'll be maintaining a constant thrust of 190,000 pound force until cutoff, which means that we'll be slowly decreasing the engine's chamber pressures over time in order to compensate for the decreasing atmospheric pressure during that ascent.
All right, real quick. Thank you guys so much. Great questions. Congrats, Clint, to your model. If you want to get
again for today's mission, we are looking to recover the first stage. This is the fully reusable version of the Block 5 rocket, at least 10 times reuse and potentially up to 100. The drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, is currently on standby in the Atlantic Ocean, ready to catch the first stage during its descent. Bangabandhu Satellite 1 is currently looking pretty healthy, entirely healthy, and we're excited to get that into its geostationary transfer orbit. The range is currently go, and the weather is also still looking good enough for us to launch today. At this point, we're just outside of T-minus 3 minutes, so let's listen in to the last few minutes of terminal count.
Sweet. This is it, guys. This is So we'll hear some the clock kind of doing some stuff. I'm gonna move this up.
Stage 1, launch load complete.
First off, if you do want one of those models like I have in the background here, Ollie Braun, link in the description. Is that a
Complete
live
rotation.
aerial
Strong
feed right
rotor
now?
Complete 88.5 degrees.
That's amazing. I love this. How are they doing that? Obviously it's a drone, but then you think about the radio communications involved around a rocket too. That's amazing. Sweet. I like that. So yeah, link in the description for Ollie's buzzspacemodels.com. And thank you, Andy. Thank
Stage
you
2, dump manifold
Camilo for
secured.
the new sponsorship. Trevor, Tisk, and David. I don't know if they said that, but it'd be funny if they did. LP1, not a thing. RP1. Oh, let's do this, guys. It wouldn't be a helicopter because helicopters would be pretty far away. You can't have people within 3
Stage
miles.
2 launch throttle and back.
Maybe.
Stage 2 launch load complete.
All right. And again, if you guys need to
Falcon 9
know
is on internal power.
more about these countdowns and stuff, I have a video, a series called Complete Guide to SpaceX, their webcast and everything like that. So find that complete guide. I go through all the countdown talk, everything you're hearing over the countdown net right now. So be sure and watch that if you need. Voice of Science. I think it's unfair. Literally, everyone says Tails.
Gas closeouts is running.
Reality's joint venture with Italy. I did not know that, Voice of Science. Thank you for the information. And thank you for the tip. Thank you. So, go France and Italy and Bangladesh. So again, this is taking off at 39A. They've almost entirely
1D
removed the
fuel
rotating
complete.
service structure that used to house the space shuttle. It's almost entirely gone, or not house the space shuttle, but act as a clean room for the space shuttle's payload bay when it was sitting on the pad. That's almost entirely gone now. Oh! Do we have a hold? I think we have a hold, guys.
Company countdown, we've had a launch abort sequence start.
Launch abort. All right, it's cut off for today then. Dang it. We don't know why yet, but let's listen in here. It has been aborted, so will not go off today. They will have to reset, maybe go for tomorrow. They don't have enough time to recycle within the launch window. It takes them like an hour to detank and then to try to refuel. I don't even know if they have the tank capacity to do that. So let's listen in here. We'll learn more about why it aborted. It was an automatic procedure. The rocket must have seen something off nominal.
It looks like just after Falcon 9 entered startup mode, it threw an abort. We're currently looking into a little more details to see if we're able to continue today's mission. If not, we'll be using our backup day tomorrow at about the same time.
That'd be really interesting if they could pick up the countdown timer. They've never done that with a full thrust with the cryogenic, but it's still attached to umbilical, so they could kind of keep pressurizing it. I think. We'll see. They've never been able to reset, so we'll see. And Ferrodrim, the oxygen venting does look different. You're right, but maybe it's just the conditions. It might be more humid. Kind of looks rainy in Florida right now, so the oxygen venting does look very different, though. I love that shot. Give me more of that shot. I know who to ask for more of that shot. Keep it up. All right, so this is okay, guys. We obviously, if something was any anomaly was picked up at all before launch, this is a good thing. It's a bad thing when there is an anomaly and the rocket doesn't realize it
If
and
you're
launches
just joining
anyway.
us, it
That's
appears we
bad.
had an abort thrown by the vehicle just
Ooh.
after it entered startup mode. These abort sequences are important to make sure that the Falcon 9 is in its best shape in time for any launch.
That'd be amazing if
So
they could
we're
reset
much
at
happier
T15.
to take those aborts beforehand rather than continue when there's any risk to the vehicle.
See, he knows what's up. Thank you, Michael.
If we have to go tomorrow, we'll be checking to see exactly what was happening that threw the abort today. The backup launch window opens tomorrow at 4:14 p.m. Eastern Time, or 8:14 Universal Coordinated Time, and closes at 6:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, or 10:21 Universal Coordinated Time.
So yeah, again, they've never actually reset like this. They had a 4-hour window a long time ago.
Hang
like
on for a few
SES9.
more moments. We're waiting for official word from the countdown net, and we'll get back to you shortly.
And I think they were able to reset fully and recycle once with, I think it was SES9. It was a long time ago, maybe SES8. It was probably like, I would say March 2016. That's the only time I remember them resetting after a hold like this. So if they do, they're near the end of their launch window anyway. Their launch window, I can't recall off the top of my head, but it was only about 2 hours. And I thought we were an hour and a half into the launch window. And again, they have to clear the area. There's a few different reasons why there's launch window opportunities. Range safety is a big one. You can't have airplanes flying in the airspace. You can't have boats along the path of the rocket. And then also, even though this is going to a fixed point in the sky, geostationary orbits are always in the same place relative to the planet. So it's not like you're hitting a moving target like you are when you're trying to launch to the International Space Station. But instead, there's still a few variables like launch inclinations, lining up on that inclination and things like that to easily get there. Getting the satellite in a place where it can deploy its solar panels and receive electrical charge quickly instead of 45 minutes later. Type of stuff are considerations they have to do. There is a launch window for those reasons. I still don't quite get... Launch window closes at 6:20 local time. Thank you, Orlando. Closes at 6:20. So yeah, so there we go. So we have, what, 30 more minutes, guys. So,
Again,
fingers
if
crossed.
you're just joining us, we had an abort just before our predicted launch time of 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time. These are an important part of making sure that the vehicle is healthy for launch. At this time, we are currently looking to discover the cause of the abort.
So yeah, again, we'll have to wait. I don't know. It basically aborted around T-1 minute, which it's interesting. I don't know what procedure would have been going on right at that T-1 minute. There may have been thrust vector control systems or something. They wiggle the engines at T-3 minutes. I'm trying to think of what exactly happens at T-1 minute. If my Discord channel has the answer, let me know. I'm trying to think of what exactly could have been picked up in that moment. It could have been something like, not quite proper temperatures in the tanks, though, even when you're dealing with cryogenics. It could be something new with Block 5. It's really hard to tell. I can only speculate so much. So we'll wait to listen, and hopefully they have a good answer. I would be very impressed if this UAV, this drone, was able to stay in the air this long. Or if it is a helicopter. It's on a long lens. It's got a long lens, but that's not exclusive to helicopters. If you notice in the background on the right there, those 3 towers, that's Pad 39B. That's the other soon-to-be operational launch pad. It's meant mostly for, that's where SLS will fly from. Also, Orbital ATK's Omega rocket will be launching from there soon. It's a pretty cool site. It's basically used to look exactly like Pad 39A. Had a big rotating service structure. The space shuttle launched from there. Not as often as it did 39A, but it did launch from there a handful of times, a couple dozen. And so that being said, we'll have to wait and see what's going on. Again, I'm excited still. They need to be sure, err on the side of caution. If there's any concern, the rocket will trigger itself if there's anything out of its parameters. And it needs to do that. If it does that on the ground, it's easy to, correct and go over and fix. It's not so easy to fix things when a rocket's going, say, 1,400 kilometers an hour at an altitude of 10 kilometers in the air. It's kind of hard to catch up to and be like, oh, guys, let me tighten that bolt, or let me, real quick, make sure that hose is clamped on there tight. You can't really do that in flight, so it's a lot better to deal with these situations on the ground, obviously. I think that's pretty obvious, but I want to reiterate that again...
we're still looking to discover the cause of the abort that Falcon 9 threw just inside T-1 minute. Because so many systems respond in abort, they change to a safe state. It takes us several minutes to understand the generally single cause of that abort. The team is actively scrubbing the telemetry log as we speak.
Joe, in future broadcasts, will I be displaying both SpaceX cameras or just one? That's a good question. It's kind of hard to squeeze too many things on one screen. I think it gets kind of cluttered.
Countdown 1. Vehicle is saved. Please stand by while reviewing data.
Okay, so the vehicle's saved. They're reviewing data, which probably means they normally when you safe the rocket, it normally means you're turning off the flight termination system, which is the thing that can make it go boomy if it sees that it's flying all Willy Wonka.
You just heard on the countdown net. We're still reviewing the data to see if we're able to determine the cause of that abort.
And also Thomas, Mr. Musk, I don't feel so good. I don't want to go. Yeah, the Block 5's tummy hurts. It's not ready to go to space yet. We'll see, though. Maybe still today. If not tomorrow. And if not then soon. It'll go when it goes. So, yeah, according to my Discord channel...
I heard the launch director announced that the vehicle is safe and gave the okay for payload to go back to external power.
Thanks for this, Mike, in our Discord. They basically were. Looks like the computer goes internal at T-minus 60 seconds, but also the flight computer commands to begin final pre-launch checks. So at 1 minute, that's when the computer does go through all the pressure. Make sure everything's up to pressure, make sure everything looks nominal. So that would be when we'd expect to see some kind of an abort procedure or a stand down. That's when the computer is doing a full self-check, self-alignment, double checks its gyroscopes and compasses and everything are all in alignment. There's a lot of things that kind of happen right at that.
So we're still reviewing those telemetry logs. We're not yet scrubbed for the day. We're working to bring you that information as quickly as possible. If we're able to launch today, or if we are not able to launch today, then our backup window is at about the same time tomorrow at 4:14 p.m. Eastern Time, closing at 6:21 p.m. Eastern Time.
Thanks, Standby for Liberty, for your tip. Thank you. That sound, that pfft, could be the rocket venting. It could be something on the floor of the factory. Yeah, I don't know what that sound is. Normally, when it purges and if it goes into a full reset, you see lots of oxygen venting right away. So. Yeah, the props by now are probably pretty warmed up. As a matter of fact, I don't see much condensation on the side of the rocket anymore, although the wind could have changed. Oh, there it is. It's still there. So it's still chilled. And I would be surprised if they couldn't continually top it off while it's in this state. I don't know for sure. I'm speaking off the top of my head, but as long as it's connected to the umbilicals and as long as there's big enough tanks to be able to pressurize it still at that capacity, it should continually cool it down and get it down to that operational temperature. Right? Maybe. Tim, random speculation of the day. Let's pray it was a false alarm. No ULA snipers, please, from Marcus. Well, thank you. I think we'll be fine. I don't think there's any snipers. SpaceX learned a lot from that AMO 6 launch that blew up during fueling, during pre-static fire, like as they were building up for a static fire on September 1st, 2016, the AMO 6 anomaly. They learned a lot, and that's why we have these COPV 2.0 inside the rocket, inside the fuel tanks and inside the oxygen tanks. COPVs are those composite overwrapped pressure vessels. They're aluminum, basically an aluminum bottle wrapped really crazy tight with carbon fiber. And SpaceX discovered a new failure mode that people didn't know about. They chill it so much. Oh, there's that crazy, massive, blurry fly that's about to eat the
we are still
tower.
Continuing to look at the data to determine if we can understand the cause of this afternoon's abort. Aborts are part of the standard process. Again, it's good to make sure that the Falcon 9 is completely ready to go, both the ground systems and the vehicle systems as well. And double checking those is vastly preferable to having any sort of a problem during flight.
Yes.
There's still a chance that we may be able to launch today, and we're working to see if that's going to be possible. Otherwise, we'll aim for a backup launch window tomorrow afternoon.
All right, so again, COPVs, composite overwrapped pressure vessels. SpaceX learned a new failure when they were using extremely cold helium inside those tanks, and when it was coming in contact with the almost solid oxygen. They get that oxygen so cold to the bottom of its freezing point to almost be solid, basically. And what was happening is the liquid oxygen was getting inside the weaves of the carbon fiber, basically, hitting the even colder helium tank, and then freezing into a solid and breaking the bonds of the carbon fiber, buckling all the carbon fiber, and therefore making the helium tanks inside there explode. And it did that, one overpressurized and leveled the entire rocket. Massive fireball. So they learned a new failure, and therefore they had to redesign. What they did later is they changed the fueling procedures to be a little more conservative and a little slower fueling, so that the oxygen couldn't come in contact, and they were able to continue on with this COPV version 1.0 that they were used to. Now they have COPV version 2, which is vastly improved and apparently one of the best engineered COPVs ever. They tested it 20 ways from Sunday or whatever, according to Elon Musk. They're ready now to throw
just joining
whatever
us,
at it.
We had an abort at the very final stages of countdown within 1 minute for a launch time of 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Falcon 9 threw the abort, and they're part of the standard process. We're still continuing to look at the data to conclude, even if it was a ground problem or a vehicle problem. Because at T-minus 1 minutes, the flight computers go into startup mode. The process of understanding that abort is a little more difficult than at other times in the countdown. So we're reviewing those telemetry logs to make sure that we're understanding it. There is still a chance that we can make it work for today's window, and we're currently exploring if that's a possibility.
Yikes. So we're getting close to the end. By the way, in the chat, guys, I'm sorry, I do try to keep up with the normal chat. You guys are crazy, but I do want to answer the super chats first. So people are going, I do pay attention to you guys, but I also pay attention to my Discord, and of course the people that tip. So thank you guys. Brandon, thank you. Spiral, you're waiting for your Lego Saturn V. Sorry to rub that in. And Brandon, thank you again. Do I think rockets will ever be close to safety of airplanes in coming years? I do. Once we have enough data. Yes, there's a lot of extreme forces involved in flying a rocket, but at the same time, those forces can be understood and engineered against, and hopefully extremely, extremely reliable. At one point, airplanes were paper, paper wings, basically. Ooh, there's venting. It's gone. It's done. Abort. That is a full-blown detanking. So they'll call it here soon. Listen up. That is definitely them venting oxygen. They are able to recycle some, for sure, the RP1, the kerosene, the rocket fuel, but they do vent out a lot of oxygen, but they try to pump back in what they can. But look at that, though. It's still, that did not seem like a full purge. Maybe that's them going to re-top off now and go for it one more time. Hard to tell. So yeah, I do think that eventually rockets someday can be as safe as airliners. Just like, again, in the 30s, airliners weren't very safe compared to today. Look at how quickly, in less than within 20, 30 years, airplanes went from terrifying to relatively safe. The more venting, great. And so then that gets to you, Sim Value. Thank you for your tip. And does an abort mean loss of fuel? There is some loss. It doesn't mean total loss of fuel, though. They can reset and recycle a decent amount of it. There's obviously some loss, especially the oxygen does vent out, but oxygen's relatively cheap. I don't know what the cost is to, chill oxygen down to near cryogenic levels. I don't know exactly how. I don't know if they actually lose any of the kerosene in the RP1, the jet or the rocket fuel, but maybe they don't lose any at all. So maybe they can fully recycle that. But there's obviously launch costs and a lot of personnel time on the clock right now that are getting paid to ground support and all that, ground crew and launch control, all that stuff. This venting just does not seem good unless they're doing like a full recycle.
And if you're just joining us, you can see that it's a T-minus 15-minute clock at the moment in a yellow state, which means we're in a hold state. We threw an abort at just inside of T-minus 1 minute as Falcon 9 had taken control of the countdown. Those aborts are part of the standard process to make sure that everything is working just as we're expecting. Much better to have those sorts of signals on the ground rather than any time during ascent.
Okay, real quick, Jonathan. I have kind of done some videos on launch windows in my complete guide to SpaceX. Check out that whole playlist. I talk about that in, I think, part 2. And I also talk about it a lot in if you want to watch a launch in Florida. I have a video called, like, Seeing a Rocket Launch in Florida. I do talk a lot about those instantaneous launch windows and stuff like that. And yeah, and then also about the BFR taking off multiple times a day. I have a video, can the BFR be used as a point-to-point transportation system? And that gets into some of those gritty details. But yeah, that's definitely a concern is, rockets are not as schedulable as, say, a train or an airplane even yet. But someday, they learn something from every abort like this. They're learning something probably right now. They might be experiencing something new. And eventually, you hopefully learn everything, or 99.999% of things, and you get it reliable, and hopefully. So someone in the chat did ask, how many times will Dragon have to fly before people are on it? Dragon V2, or not V2, sorry, Dragon 2. V2 is a different vehicle. Dragon 2 will for sure fly. Basically, it already did an abort, which it wasn't quite, it was basically a dummy one. It'll do an in-flight abort, which is, again, another dummy one. They'll fly a real one to the International Space Station, and they might pack it with some cargo. I think it might only need to fly once like that, unhumaned. So unpassengered. I'm not positive, so we'll wait and see. I don't remember what recaller certification. Does anyone in Discord know for sure if it's 1 or 2? So yeah, and by the way, guys, again, they'll have to start this clock, I think, by 6:07 Eastern, because I believe it goes to 6:22. I don't think it's 6:20 on the dot. I think it was 6:22 is the launch window. So if the clock does not resume in the next 1 minute now, this will be aborted today, and they will hopefully be able to go for it tomorrow. But it seems like they're still trying. Otherwise, we would have heard a very obvious, we have reset. We are not going for today. So we will see. 6:22. All right. So yeah, 1 minute, guys. Less than 1 minute. So we'll see, guys. Like I said, normally they would let us know. I'm surprised they're even still pushing for it if they're still reviewing data. That's true. Maybe in Ollie Stroll on our Discord, maybe the 15 minutes is just a placeholder. And maybe it won't have to restart at 15. So we don't know. There might be something else. They might be able to reset it and get us down to a 4 minute or something like that too. So let's just tune in here. We'll listen up, wait for an actual update. And thank you, Nathan. What if companies like FedEx or UPS use reusable BFRs to make overnight shipping even faster? Absolutely. Any thoughts? 100%. For sure. Once a system like BFR, point-to-point transportation system here on Earth, once that's proven out, it's a game changer, and I don't see why not, especially with cargo.
Countdown had officially scrubbed for today, preparing for a 24-hour recycle.
There we go. Scrubbed for today. Dang it. We tried. They tried. We tried watching. Together, though. And that's all that matters. So, tomorrow, guys, I'm going to tune in and see if they mention anything else about why. If they figure out what. I'd be surprised. Make sure you're following them on Twitter. Be sure, guys, if you're in here right now, be sure and subscribe here so you can catch it tomorrow. I like to try to break some of this stuff down and be able to answer questions like this, like why now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
We've just received final confirmation that we are standing down today due to a violation of abort criteria.
I'll answer a few more questions here.
The vehicle and payload are in good health. The next launch opportunity is tomorrow, May 11th. Again, if you're just joining us, we had a launch attempt at 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Falcon 9 threw an abort in the final minute of countdown. And it seems like we are unable to reach the launch, or to launch within the launch window for today at this time. We have concluded a preliminary review, however, and have determined that the vehicle and payload are in good health, and we'll be aiming to launch tomorrow during our backup launch window at 4:14 p.m. Eastern Time, closing at 6:21 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right. I'm seeing he's getting some new information, I bet.
At this point,
time to
we'll
close
conclude
out.
the webcast. Thank you again for joining us. And we hope to see you for tomorrow's launch attempt at, again, 4:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank
right.
you again.
All right, guys, I'll answer a few more questions. Sorry, that's not, what we want for a launch day. But it happens. It happens. So, first off, I'll be, again, I always start about T-minus 30 minutes before, so T-minus 30 minutes before liftoff. So, whatever time tomorrow, you said 4:14 Eastern, I will be starting at 3:45 Eastern, or so-ish. So stay tuned in. Make sure you're subscribed here. Follow me on Twitter. If you just search Everyday Astronaut, or Day Astronaut is actually the handle. But follow SpaceX on Twitter so you can get updates too. Maybe they'll tweet here soon about what actually happened tonight. Again, remember, I did a video about the press conference that Elon did over the phone before this launch today. I did a real quick review, a summary of all the changes for Block 5. So be sure and check that out. I just posted that a minute ago, right before we went live here today. And again, I will be doing this tomorrow. Be sure, guys, I have a few more things to tell you. This is a big one. Don't forget, my secret mission is officially not secret, my hashtag secret mission. I do have a new series. It was purchased by Facebook for Facebook Watch. It's called Spacing Out. It's bonus content. It's not what I do here. This was an actual show. Like, I have an actual show that was made by the same people that made Modern Marvels and stuff. It's kind of crazy, I guess. But it was a lot of fun. It's a big production. We did a lot of fun experiments. It's free to watch. If you go to facebook.com/spacingouteverydayastronaut or just search Spacing Out, link in the description down here. Be sure and check that out. I promise it's a lot of fun. It's free to watch. You don't have to sign in if you don't have Facebook, so don't worry. Free. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot more entertaining and more ridiculous than what I'm able to do here in my room. So check that out. Again, be sure you're subscribed here. And stay tuned. I'm going to be posting a video here soon called Why SSTOs Suck. Single stage to orbit vehicles suck. I hope to get that out here hopefully by about the end of the weekend or by Monday at the latest. Fingers crossed. This stuff always takes me longer than I want. But again, a huge thank you to Frank and Mark Trombley and the people that helped, that tipped during this broadcast. Thank you. That all goes into my tummy and making sure I don't starve to death. So thank you. I wouldn't be doing this without your guys' support, and I especially wouldn't be doing this without my Patreon support. If you want to help support what I do, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. You can join our exclusive subreddit. You can join our exclusive Discord channel. You can give input and voting rights to upcoming videos. Argue with me about if single-stage to orbit vehicles suck or not, which we've been doing a lot of lately. It's great. I again could not do that without you guys. I don't do like sponsored content in my show. It's all thanks to you guys. It is all thanks to you. All thanks to your support. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'll be scripting more, and I think it's time for me to go. But let's hope that Block 5 gets off tomorrow. And hopefully, remember again, I do have the video up right now, Elon's Block 5 press conference review. So if you need a kind of an overview of what's new about Block 5, I get super in depth with that. Go ahead and take a look at that. So yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you. I'll see you guys here tomorrow. Have a great night or a great whatever it is wherever you live. It's night for me, though, pretty much now, so wish me luck. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Bye, everybody.